Let me ask you something. When was the last time you told someone about your problems and it actually made you feel better? Not just in the moment, not just the temporary relief of venting. I mean, better, stronger, more capable, more in control. Chances are it didn't. Not really. Because here's the truth that most people won't say out loud. Talking about your problems doesn't fix them. And most people don't really care. Some might pretend to. Some might listen out of politeness. But deep down, everyone's carrying their own load. Your pain is not their priority. Now, I know that sounds harsh, maybe even cold, but it's not meant to be cruel. It's meant to wake you up. We live in a world that celebrates oversharing. Be vulnerable. Speak your truth. Let it out. And yes, there's a place for that. But what if I told you that always sharing your pain isn't power? It's giving it away. Think about that. Every time you go to someone with your problems, you're placing your emotional life in their hands. You're hoping they'll catch it, cradle it, care for it. But what if they don't? What if they twist it? What if they walk away? Now you're not just hurting, you're exposed. There's a reason the strongest people in the room are usually the quietest. It's not because they don't have problems. It's because they've learned to protect their energy. They've learned that composure is power, that being calm when you're on fire inside is a kind of strength no one can take from you. You don't need to announce your struggle to validate it. You don't need applause to survive it. What you need is to master it. And that begins with one simple shift. Stop telling people your problems. Start telling yourself your solution. And if you can do that, if you can stop outsourcing your strength, something incredible happens. You stop being the victim in your story. You become the author. Let's talk about how most people walk through life carrying an invisible expectation that when they're struggling, the world will pause and care, that someone will notice their pain, reach out, and offer comfort, that empathy is automatic, guaranteed, owed. But that's not how it works, not in the real world. The truth is hard, it's uncomfortable, and most people don't want to hear it. The world doesn't owe you empathy. Nobody is required to understand your pain. No one is obligated to feel what you're feeling or carry the weight that's crushing you. And the sooner you let go of that expectation, the faster you become unshakable. Let's be clear. Empathy is a beautiful thing. When it's real, when it's earned, when it shows up authentically, it can be powerful. But banking on it, expecting it, that's where people start to fall apart. Because when they don't get it, and often they won't, they spiral. They feel abandoned, bitter, resentful. And all of that energy, all of that emotion gets wasted on what should have been instead of what is. Life doesn't respond to what you deserve. It responds to what you demand of yourself. Here's what people miss. Everyone is fighting a war. You can't see. Everyone. The person next to you, they might be losing someone. They might be holding together a family. They might be drowning in silence. So when you walk into a room and expect everyone to drop what they're doing and prioritize your battle, you're ignoring the fact that they're already in the middle of theirs. And it's not because people are cold or cruel. It's because they're human. And being human means having limits. Having your own pain, it means not always having the capacity to carry someone else's weight, no matter how much you might want to. Even the most compassionate people have a threshold. There's only so much emotional bandwidth we all get. And most of it, it goes towards surviving our own storms. What happens when you operate with the assumption that people owe you empathy is that you give away your power, because now your healing depends on their reaction. If they're supportive, you're okay. If they're distant, you collapse. And suddenly, your emotional state is being held hostage by someone else's ability to care. That's dangerous. That's unstable. And it's not necessary. You have the ability to carry yourself, to sit in your pain without needing permission to feel it, to hold space for yourself instead of begging someone else to do it. That's not coldness. That's emotional maturity. And it doesn't mean isolating yourself. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means choosing wisely who you share your battles with and why. Are you sharing to gain insight, to strategize, to heal intentionally? Or are you sharing because you want someone to rescue from your emotion? Because here's the truth, no one is coming to rescue you. That's your job. People love to say talk to someone. And yes, there's value in that. But not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. Not everyone should get the full, unfiltered version of your story. Empathy has to be earned, not assumed. And the people who truly get it, who truly see you, they will show up without you needing to scream for attention. But when you expect that from everyone, you set yourself up for heartbreak. You start to believe that your pain isn't valid unless someone else acknowledges it, and that's a dangerous place to live. You have to build something stronger than that. You have to become the kind of person who doesn't break when no one claps, who doesn't crumble when no one says, "I'm sorry you're going through that," who doesn't rely on external validation to process internal chaos. That kind of strength is rare, but it's real and you can develop it. Start by reminding yourself you are not entitled to anyone's understanding. People might try, they might care, but they don't owe you empathy. Just like you don't owe it to every single person you meet. And that doesn't make you heartless. It makes you discerning. It means you've realized that your energy is precious and your emotions are not public property. So what do you do instead? You become your own anchor. When things go wrong, you hold yourself down. When the world goes quiet, you stay steady. You don't broadcast your pain for sympathy. You process it, learn from it, and move through it with intention. And when you do speak about it, you do it with purpose. You speak not to complain, but to teach. Not to seek pity, but to share strength. You become the kind of person whose story inspires, not drains, because now you've earned your voice. You've earned your clarity, and the people who listen, they do so because you've proven that you don't need them. You've chosen them. There's power in that. So stop waiting for the world to care. It's not supposed to. That's not its job. Its job is to test you, to challenge you, to throw you into chaos and see what you do next. Your job is to become the kind of person who can take the hit and still stand tall. Because once you stop expecting empathy from everyone, you stop being controlled by their absence, and you start becoming unstoppable. Let's get one thing straight. There is nothing noble about leaking your pain to every person you meet. It doesn't make you real. It doesn't make you brave. It doesn't make you healed. In fact, most of the time it does the exact opposite. It diminishes your power. Every time you overshare, especially in the wrong place, with the wrong people at the wrong time, you hand over parts of yourself that should have been protected. And once you give that away, you don't get it back. People love to talk about authenticity these days. Be raw, be open, be vulnerable. But here's the truth no one likes to say. Vulnerability isn't power unless it's disciplined, unless it's strategic. There is a difference between being honest and being careless, between being expressive and being exposed. And when you overshare, when you bleed emotionally in front of people who haven't earned your trust, you move from strength to weakness without even realizing it. Oversharing often comes from a deep craving to be seen, to be understood, to connect. And that's human. That's natural. But what's also natural is the world's response to that. People will judge you, not because they're cruel, but because they can. Because you gave them the ammunition. You gave them the script. And now you don't control the narrative anymore. They do. It starts small. You open up in a moment of frustration, exhaustion, or fear. You say more than you meant to. You let your guard down, thinking it's safe. And maybe in that moment, it even feels good, like a release, like a weight lifted. But what you often don't realize is that every time you unload on someone who hasn't earned the right to carry that weight, you're not relieving pressure, you're creating it. You're setting up future discomfort, future regret. You're giving people a window into a part of you that maybe should have stayed closed. People listen to your words, but they remember your patterns. If you're the person who's always talking about how hard things are, how overwhelmed you are, how nothing is working out, guess what? That's how people will start to define you. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but because it's the impression you've given them over time. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly teaching people how to perceive you. And when your voice is always filled with problems, eventually that becomes your identity to them. Now, this doesn't mean you can't have struggles. Everyone does. But there's a difference between acknowledging your struggle and becoming it, between speaking from a wound and speaking from a scar. People respect scars, they're evidence of healing. Wounds, wounds make people uncomfortable, not because they don't care, but because they can sense you're still unstable, still reactive, still in the process. And the truth is, most people don't want to get dragged into that process. They want to be around people who are grounded, who are aware of their emotions, but not ruled by them. And here's something else people don't talk about. Oversharing is often mistaken for weakness, even if that's not fair, even if your intention is simply to be open. In high-stakes environments, in leadership, in crisis, in conflict, people look for composure. They look for stability. And if what they see instead is someone who can't hold their emotional line, they don't feel trust. They feel doubt. Whether they say it out loud or not, they question your ability to handle pressure. So you have to ask yourself, is what I'm about to share helping me or hurting me? Am I building connection or am I leaking control? Am I speaking from clarity or from desperation? There's a quiet confidence in restraint, in knowing you could say more, but choosing not to, in keeping parts of yourself sacred, guarded, private, because not everything is meant to be public. Not every emotion deserves a microphone, and not everyone deserves a front row seat to your internal life. The strongest people don't talk the most. They listen, they observe, they wait. They choose their words with intention, and when they do speak, people listen, not because they're loud, but because they're rare, because their silence carries weight, because they're not constantly pouring their chaos into the world. If you want to be that kind of person, respected, grounded, unshakable, you have to practice emotional discipline. You have to learn to sit with your thoughts long enough to understand them before you speak them. You have to understand that not everything needs to be shared in real time. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause, hold it, process it, then move. And when you do share, because yes, there is a time to speak, you do it with strength. You speak from a place of growth, from reflection, from ownership. You don't use your story to seek sympathy. You use it to offer perspective, to connect, not collapse, to teach, not trigger. There is incredible power in being able to hold yourself together when everything inside you wants to unravel. That doesn't mean you pretend. It means you choose. You decide who gets access to the real you and when. You create boundaries, not walls, but strong, intentional lines that protect your peace. So no, it's not about shutting down or going silent forever. It's about knowing that every word you speak builds or breaks the way the world sees you. And if you want to be seen as strong, as capable, as someone who doesn't just survive pressure but commands it, you have to act like it. You have to speak like it. You don't need to share everything to be seen. You need to share the right things at the right time to the right people. And if you can master that, you become dangerous in the best way possible. Controlled, intentional, powerful. Not because you say everything, but because you don't. There's something most people never stop to think about. You might be fighting the hardest battles of your life, showing up every day, keeping it together with duct tape and grit, and no one will ever know. Because the truth is, people don't see the battles you hide well. They only see the ones you show. They remember the struggle you put on display, not the quiet strength you carry in silence. And that's why it's so important to become aware of what you're teaching people about you through your actions, your words, your energy. You can be one of the strongest people in the room and still be perceived as weak, simply because you talk too much about your pain. When you constantly wear your struggle on your sleeve, that becomes the lens through which people see you. That becomes your story, not your resilience. not your endurance, not the fact that you keep showing up. They just see the struggle you let them see. And the human mind works that way. What's most visible becomes most memorable. Think about it. If you walk into a room every week and talk about how tired you are, how overwhelmed, how everything is going wrong, people aren't going to say, wow, they're really strong for enduring that. They're going to say, they're always a mess. Not because they're judging you harshly, but because repetition creates narrative. What you say again and again becomes your story. Even if it's just one part of your life, you might have moments of incredible strength, clarity, wisdom, but if those moments stay silent, and your struggle is what's always spoken, that's what people hold on to. It's not fair, but it's real. Most people are not emotionally trained to see through struggle and identify strength. They respond to signals, to energy, to patterns. So if your communication is always rooted in stress, anxiety, or frustration, then you're building an identity around that, even if that's not who you are. Even if deep down you're strong. Even if you've grown. People will remember what you showed them, not what you meant to show. And let's be clear, this isn't about faking it. This isn't about pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's about being intentional. Because every time you let the world see your lowest moments without any frame, without any reflection, without any strength behind it, you're creating an image of yourself that doesn't serve you. When people see you handling adversity with quiet resilience, with calm presence, they start to respect you. They may not know what you've been through, but they feel something different. They feel grounded around you. They trust your energy. They sense that you've been tested and that you came through it intact. That's strength. But if the only thing they ever hear is your frustration, your pain, your chaos, they won't see your journey. They'll only see the breakdown. And you deserve better than to be defined by your lowest moment. This is why composure matters. Not for appearances, not to please others, but to protect your identity, to guard your story, to make sure that who you are isn't lost in the noise of what you're feeling on your worst day. Because here's the thing, struggle is universal. Everyone has problems. Everyone has dark seasons. But not everyone has the discipline to carry it without letting it shape their public identity. The people who are respected, trusted, followed, they're not the ones who complain the loudest. They're the ones who show up, handle what needs to be handled, and share only when it serves a purpose. That doesn't mean they're robots. It doesn't mean they bury everything inside. It means they're selective. They know when to speak, how to speak, and what to leave unsaid. And when they do talk about their struggle, it's with reflection, with growth, with purpose. That kind of person is unforgettable. Because now when people remember your story, they don't remember the chaos. They remember the strength you revealed through the chaos. You have to train yourself to speak from a scar, not a wound. A wound bleeds. A scar teaches. A wound seeks sympathy. A scar offers perspective, and if you're always bleeding on the people around you, eventually they'll back away. Not because they don't care, but because no one wants to drown in someone else's pain forever. You might be doing more damage to your reputation, your relationships, your opportunities than you realize just by how often you show your struggle. Not because your pain isn't real, but because you haven't yet learned to hold it, process it, and then choose what to do with it intentionally. So pause, take inventory. What are you teaching people about who you are? Are you reinforcing your strength or your struggle? Are you letting your problems speak louder than your resilience? You have more control over your image than you think. Every conversation, every venting session, every post, every offhand comment is part of that story. Are you writing the story of a fighter, of someone who's been through it and stood tall? Or are you writing the story of someone who can't carry what life gives them? Because, like it or not, people won't always give you the benefit of the doubt. They won't always stop to look deeper. They'll take what you show them at face value, and it's your job to make sure that what you're showing them aligns with who you really are. You can still be real. You can still talk about hard things, but you must do it with intention, with restraint, with strength. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't remember your heart. It remembers your behavior. It doesn't always remember how far you've come. It remembers what you showed them in the moment. And the only way to make that moment count is to lead with strength, not struggle. Every day you wake up with a limited supply of energy, just like money. It's a currency. You don't get an infinite amount. You can't print more on demand. And just like money, where you choose to spend that energy determines what kind of life you build. Most people don't realize this. They operate as if their energy is endless, wasting it on things that don't serve them. Drama, negativity, blame, and especially complaining. Complaining feels good in the moment. It gives you that short-lived rush of release, like opening a valve and letting the steam escape. But what you don't see is the slow drain it causes. Every time you complain, you're trading your energy for nothing. You're spending your most valuable resource on something that doesn't move your life forward an inch. No clarity, no progress, no change. Now let's be clear. There's a difference between identifying a problem and complaining about it. Identifying the problem is about awareness. It's the first step to solving it. But complaining, that's repetition without intention. It's the loop you get stuck in when you talk about the same issue over and over, looking for sympathy, validation, or a way to escape ownership. And the worst part? Complaining is contagious. Spend 5 minutes venting to someone, and suddenly you've lowered the energy in the entire room. You've shifted the focus away from solutions and dragged everyone into the swamp of what's wrong. You're not just wasting your own energy, you're stealing theirs too. People don't realize how expensive that is. Your energy is meant for building, for creating, for fixing, for strengthening, not for recycling the same excuses, the same frustrations, the same tired story of why life isn't working out. When you spend your energy on complaining, you're doing nothing but rehearsing failure. You're reinforcing helplessness. And the more you tell that story, the more your brain believes it. What you focus on expands. You keep talking about what's broken, your mind starts filtering out anything that's working. You stop seeing opportunities because all you've trained yourself to notice are obstacles, and then you wonder why nothing changes. It's because you're spending all your energy looking at the problem and none solving it. Look around at the people who get things done, the ones who make things happen even under pressure. You won't hear them complain for long. They might acknowledge the challenge briefly, but then they pivot, they shift into action, because they know energy is precious. And the longer you sit in complaint, the more you lose momentum. And once momentum is gone, it's 10 times harder to get it back. This doesn't mean you ignore emotions. It doesn't mean you pretend everything's fine when it's not. It means you become aware of what kind of emotional investment you're making. Are you putting your energy into solutions, or are you using your words to justify staying stuck? People say, I'm just venting. But if you're venting the same thing for weeks, months, even years, at some point, it's not venting anymore. It's avoidance. It's fear. It's inertia. It's the story you've become comfortable telling, even though it's holding you back. And the worst part is, you start attracting people who match that same energy, people who validate your complaints, reinforce your stuckness, and call it support. That's not support. That's sabotage in disguise. If you really want to grow, if you want to move, evolve, and lead, you have to start protecting your energy like it's gold. Because it is. It's the one thing you can never get back once you waste it. Every conversation, every thought, every complaint, it's a withdrawal from your mental bank account. And at the end of the day, you better make sure those withdrawals went towards something that matters. Spend your energy solving, even when you don't have the full answer yet, even when the problem is bigger than you expected, even when you're tired. Solving doesn't mean having it all figured out. It means engaging with the challenge instead of escaping from it. It means putting your brain to work, not just your mouth. It means asking better questions, moving in the direction of a fix, not just circling the mess. And solving doesn't always look like giant leaps. Sometimes it's one quiet decision at a time. Shifting your schedule, saying no, learning something new, asking for advice from someone who's been there. But every step you take toward a solution builds confidence, and confidence becomes fuel. You start to realize that action creates clarity, that when you do something, even something small, you regain control. And that's what complaining steals from you. Control. It tricks you into thinking the power is out there, with other people, with luck, with timing. But when you solve, you take that power back. You remind yourself that even if you didn't choose the situation, you can choose your response. And that shift right there is everything. So ask yourself this: if your energy were money, would you still be spending it the way you are? Would you invest in hours of talking about how hard things are? Would you throw away chunks of your mental focus to people who just want to complain with you? Would you bankrupt your motivation by pouring it into problems you never intend to fix? Or would you tighten up, get focused, start spending your energy like a builder, like someone who's here to move, not just moan? Because when you shift into that mindset, when you start protecting your energy like it's a resource that builds your future, you become unstoppable. You stop reacting to life and start driving it. And every complaint that used to waste your breath becomes fuel for the fire you're building under your own feet. Your energy is currency. Spend it wisely. Spend it solving. That's how real change begins. There's a very clear line between the kind of person people are drawn to and the kind of person people quietly avoid. You felt it, whether you've acknowledged it or not. There are people whose presence feels like a calm, steady force, even in chaos. And then there are others whose energy drains you the second they open their mouth. The difference isn't talent, it's not status, it's not how many followers they have or how good they are at their job. It's emotional stability, it's self-awareness, it's whether you've trained yourself to be the kind of person people want to come to or the one they run from. You don't earn trust by oversharing or constantly needing to be heard. You earn it by becoming someone who can handle not being the center, someone who listens more than they speak, someone who doesn't always need to make it about them. Because here's the hard truth: if every conversation with you turns into a therapy session about you, people will stop showing up. Not because they're selfish, but because they can't breathe around you. Because every time they try to bring their own life into the room, you overshadow it with yours. If you're constantly venting, constantly emotionally charged, constantly seeking support, but never offering it, people start to flinch when they see your name pop up. They don't say it to your face, but they feel it. They begin to associate your presence with heaviness, drama, and emotional labor. And when someone starts to feel like being around you is a job, the relationship becomes transactional. They'll give you just enough energy to stay polite, but not enough to stay connected. Being the person others come to means mastering emotional self-regulation. It means knowing how to hold space not just for yourself, but for others. That doesn't mean you fake happiness or become some robotic version of yourself. It means you build enough internal structure that people feel safer around you than they feel alone. That when they come to you, they don't leave more drained, they leave more grounded. Most people have no idea how rare that is. When someone is going through something hard, they're not looking for perfection. They're looking for stability. They're looking for someone who doesn't panic when they open up. Someone who doesn't hijack the moment with their own issues. Someone who knows how to sit in silence, to listen without fixing, to hear without judging. That's a skill, and most people don't develop it because they're too caught up in being heard instead of being available. If every time someone opens up to you, you immediately jump in with your own story, your own pain, your own same thing happened to me, you're not connecting, you're deflecting, you've made it about you. Again, and eventually, people stop coming to you because they don't feel seen around you. They feel overshadowed. Now think about this: when something major happens in someone's life, good or bad, who do they call? Who do they trust with that information first? It's not the loudest person. It's not the one with the most advice. It's the one who's consistent, who's present, who shows up without turning everything into a performance. That person becomes a quiet anchor in people's lives. That's what you want to be, an anchor, not a weight. There's a difference. Anchors stabilize, they don't pull people down, they keep them steady. Weights, on the other hand, make people feel like they're sinking. You want to be the one who knows how to carry your own stuff so well that when someone brings theirs to you, you don't crumble. You're not shaken. You don't make it about you. You create room for them without collapsing. And that requires discipline. It means you can't always react emotionally. It means you have to check your ego at the door. It means you have to be okay with not always being the one in need. Because if you're always the one falling apart, there's no room for anyone else to lean on you. And if no one can lean on you, they'll stop trying. If you want to be the person others come to, start becoming the person who doesn't flinch when things get real, who doesn't gossip, who doesn't weaponize vulnerability, who doesn't turn someone's pain into a social post. Be the one who holds private things privately. Be the one who listens, who remembers, who shows up. You build this reputation one interaction at a time. It starts when someone casually tells you something hard and you don't interrupt. It deepens when you ask a question. Not because you want the dirt, but because you genuinely care. It grows when you don't judge them. Don't fix them. Don't make it about your own experience. You just hold space. You stay. And yes, this takes practice. It takes maturity. It takes self-awareness. You have to know when you're slipping into your own patterns of emotional neediness. You have to catch yourself before you over-talk, over-explain, or overshare. You have to remind yourself that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a moment is just be there. The more you do that, the more people trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. And presence is rare. Real presence, not distracted scrolling, not performative concern, not half listening while you plan what to say next. Presence that says, you're safe here, I've got you. You don't have to carry this alone. That's the person people come to. Not the one who's always loudest in the room, not the one who's always in crisis, not the one who needs the spotlight, but the one who quietly, consistently shows up with strength, clarity, and care. Be that person, because the world doesn't need more people screaming into the void. It needs more people who can be silent and strong at the same time. At the end of the day, life will test you. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will bend you. But how you choose to show up, especially when things are hard, will define the legacy you leave behind. Not the pain you endured, not the number of people who sympathized with you, not how loudly you shared your struggle, but how you carried yourself through it. You don't need to broadcast your problems to prove your strength. You don't need to chase empathy to validate your worth. Power isn't in how loud your story is, it's in how silently and consistently you rise. When you learn to hold your ground, protect your energy, solve instead of complain, and be a steady force others can rely on, you elevate yourself. You separate yourself. Because while everyone else is waiting for the world to understand them, you're becoming the person the world looks to for direction. You're building quiet strength in a noisy world. And that is rare. That is respected. That is remembered. So carry your battles with dignity. Protect your peace like it's your future. And lead with presence, not pain. Be the person people count on, not the one they dodge. In a world where everyone's talking, be the one who moves. Let your strength speak louder than your struggle ever could. And remember, you don't have to tell the world your problems to prove you've survived them. Just keep showing up like someone who has. That's enough. That's everything.